debating who the player of the game is, but before we do that any further, Weepo, you came on stage, you replaced Soaz, you won, and now you're going to finals. Talk to me about how you feel right now.
I'm pretty ecstatic right now. I never expected that this would happen. The way how it happened was not how I wanted it, because obviously I got replaced because of an injury rather than my better play. So I struggled with the feeling of, do I deserve to be here? Do I deserve to play? And now that we won, and I proved that I do, it's just an amazing feeling, really.
Yeah, well, it looked good for you on stage. Now to you, Brox, I mean, they were able to grab a single game off you. It was looking a little bit rough there, but you guys came back swinging in game 4. Talk to me about the feelings after you guys did lose that game after a pretty clean 2-0 start.
Well, I think generally throughout this whole week, I've been a little bit stressed because both splits last year, we generally looked pretty good. But then when it came to the semifinal, something went wrong and we choked. And then this time, obviously, I didn't want the same thing to happen, and I felt some stress during the week. And also after game 4, you know, the thoughts go like, oh shit, is it gonna happen again? Now can we actually end the series? And luckily we did.
Worked out in the end, did pull off the win. I'm curious, did having an emergency substitute, even one who did successfully win the series with you, did that put more pressure on you guys coming into the week and coming into this series?
I don't know if it necessarily puts more pressure on us. I think I've been thinking throughout the week that I had to step up a bit more in terms of shot calling, since in mid-late game, Soaz has always been a big voice. Bwipo is calling a lot as well, but the thing is that Soaz has always been there in the big games to help everyone do the right thing, and in the big games, his experience has usually helped a lot. And that's a place where I try to step in a bit myself today and try to take some of that role, take some of that responsibility, and yeah, I think Bwipo did really well, so it turned out good anyways.
And I'm curious for you, what was your prep like going from there's no way I'm playing in playoffs at all to, oh look, I'm playing semifinals, and then if we win either finals or third place, depending on the result, how did you feel about this week? What was your preparation like?
For me, I think I got really lucky for this week and this patch in general, because the entire patch has, I think, 4 out of 5 other top laners are carry champions. And I feel like when I was considered for stage time was when these champions saw play. So I've always been considered over Soaz in the sense when Camille and Gangplank are meta, and that's exactly what the meta is right now for top. So with Swain coming into the mix, I'm just 100% at home, because even if you look at my solo queue, you know, the top 4 champions I like playing the most and play the most are the best top laners in competitive. So for me, it just worked out perfectly. Not
even afraid to reveal it, clear as day, showing up what you show off in solo queue here. It was a good look, it was a good transition. But as we look ahead towards finals, a lot of pressure. Now, this isn't something that was levied against you as much, but Broxa last year when we saw playoffs, when we saw you guys choke, as you were calling it earlier, there was a lot of criticism levied at you individually, even as a member of Fnatic. I'm curious, how do you feel like you've developed since the last time, or as an individual, since the last time Fnatic was playing in playoffs in the EU LCS?
I think generally, even last year and at Worlds, when I got a lot of criticism, I think some of it was fair and a lot of it was actually not. Because I think, obviously, sometimes this is not the case, but often the jungler is like showcasing how strong the team is in terms of early game, in terms of shot calling and all this. And I think, obviously, there were things I could do better, but we also just made so many mistakes, and that also made me look a bit worse as well. Also, because I transitioned to a more supportive role, which is also the case now. But I think generally I've been playing pretty well this split, especially like last week and today. I think I stepped up, so I'm pretty happy.
Got to play Nidalee, a little less of the supportive role, a little more of the carry champions, throw out some spears there. Now, as we look ahead towards your next match against G2, one last question for you, Bwipo. Going up against Wunder, how are you feeling about that top lane matchup? I know you were getting a lot of attention, getting camped in the matches today. Do you feel like you can come in stronger than you did today against that matchup in G2?
I think the priority for the champions will be relatively the same. I think the champion pool will be the same in between the 2 players. I think Gangplank will be a very high priority for that match. And I think that's good because I'm very comfortable playing it and playing against it. I'm not 100% sure what their idea is, as they have a very strong mid 2v2. And I think most of top lane revolves around what they want to do if they have a stronger mid 2v2. If they want to play for bot, then you have a 1v1 matchup and you're on the island, like people say. But if they're winning it and they do decide to go for me, I think I'm going to have a little of a rough time. I'm going to try and prepare a few more pocket picks if possible to try and see if I can handle those 1v3 situations better.
All right, I'm excited to see it. Congrats again, guys, on your win and your future match this Sunday in Copenhagen. I'm excited to see it. We'll see who comes out on top. But for now, time to send it over to the post-game lobby with Shocks.
Thank you very much, Dracos, and welcome everyone to the second semi-final EU LCS post-game lobby. I'm joined here by Verius, but of course also to more of the victorious Fnatic members, Reckless and Caps. Thank you very much for joining me, and also from our side, a huge congratulations. Big emotions, I think, on both sides. Maybe Reckless, I'll go to you first. After 2 years in the making, you finally make it to another final. How does it feel?
It feels great, honestly. Like. When I woke up this morning, well, I could barely sleep to begin with, but when I did get out of bed this morning, I felt like 5.5 years I've been playing League of Legends, and I'm still shaky when it really matters. So I realized that if I'm really shaky for semifinals and I feel like inside that it means so much to me, then I want to make it to finals and feel what that is, because it's been a long time in the making now. Like the last time I was playing a finals was 2015 summer, and I can barely even remember anymore how it felt. So when I woke up this morning and felt that way, I was like, I really want to get the finals and see how it feels again.
And you guys did it. And at Caps, I can only imagine that for you, there was the same kind of pressure on your shoulders. You're now playing with this Fnatic roster for the second year in a row. How did you go into this match?
I mean, I was definitely nervous. I was sick like a few weeks ago. So I was a bit nervous about my performance coming into playoffs. I think I really hoped that we would be able to beat Vitality, and I felt like we were the favorites coming into this match as well. I'm not sure what to feel right now. Like I would just be really sad if I would miss out on the finals in Copenhagen. Like that would be really, really sad. I have so many people coming to watch me, and I'm just glad that it's the final.
Yeah,
how many do you actually have? I have 12.
I have like, I don't know, my dad bought like 70 tickets or something.
Yay! Great
So
from
yeah, you
Caps'
see,
dad.
the finals was important for us.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
nice.
So for both of you important, but I can see how there's an extra importance for Broxa as well. The Danes on stage in Copenhagen. Let's wrap up this series. Verius, maybe give the guys your thoughts on how you think Fnatic played, because in the end it was a very decisive show of force in the end from Fnatic.
So to me, it felt like that you guys shifted much more towards an early game focused playstyle. It definitely felt like that there was a lot more focus towards playing around mid specifically, especially in game one. Caps and Broxa seemed to have a really good synergy with both the Zoe and the Nidalee, and it felt like that throughout the series you guys just felt much more comfortable playing more towards the early game rather than relying on a lot of the late game fights that you had against teams like G2 during the regular season.
Yeah, so when we saw Vitality play last week, we felt like they were only winning games because they were having mid priority, and I didn't really feel like their side lanes were doing much. Like they were just being handed the lead from their mid jungle. So we were talking a lot about getting winning duos around mid, and I think in most cases we were successful. Yep. There was maybe game 3 when they had Olaf Talia where it was a bit too much, but I think in general we had like a pretty good idea on how we needed to play the game around mid so that our side lanes wouldn't get punished. And I think, as I said, it was successful in 3 out of 4 games. Just the one game where they had Olaf Talia got too much pressure and that snowballed on our show.
But even then, like even in game 3, like the game was super even.
I think we threw a Nash.
And then it was that single Nash decision where the moment they got banned.
Just we felt like that was really important against Vitality because it didn't seem like they had much of a game plan other than pushing mid and moving to either side lane. So we felt like if we just shut that down, we should be a better macro team, individual players, everything should just be in our favor. So we're very focused on that.
Also, just in general, like I think when we played G2, we had like a really poor draft. It was really up to G2 to lose that game, and they showed that they were not good enough to actually end the game. So considering that they are the second, like the guys we're going to meet in the final, I hope they have improved, because back then they couldn't actually end the game, and since we have practiced a lot on closing out games, I'm confident that we can close out games, and if they can't, then I think it's going to be a really fast series.
Ooh, Caps, I love it how you're already jumping on that final prediction and telling G2 to watch out. I also want to congratulate you. You are our player of the series. We let the public vote, and well, fantastic on that. Did you see PGL yesterday by any chance?
Yes, I did.
Did you hear that?
We were all watching it together, don't worry.
Did you hear that Caps, that Reckless, yeah, that you are Caps and you are Reckless, that Perks didn't have that much faith in you?
Yeah,
today.
I mean, I heard the same, and I heard the same in Euphoria.
Phobia.
something.
Euphoria.
Euphoria, okay. I heard the same in that series as well, and it was really fun because at the same time we were scrimming G2, and let's
Yeah, we're
say
smashing
Berks
them every game. Yeah.
had a lot of depth in these games, and then I hear him talk like this on stage. So I just wish he could show it with his play, but I guess we'll find out next week.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Fighting words, and that is indeed what we're going to see next week. We'll talk about that a bit later in a second. I do want to get some more thoughts on this match, and on Bwipo specifically. We just heard from him. He said that he felt like maybe it wasn't the fair way for him to get the chance. The fact that Soaz was injured, he really wanted to prove himself. So what was the experience like playing with him? Maybe Caps first in this series.
So going into like week 10 we were going to, or like week 9 we were going to play with Bwipo. So we started like 3-3ing scrims instead of like 5-1. And then we did the same for week 10. So we actually were playing a lot with Bwipo lately. And then going into playoffs, I actually don't remember what exactly the plan was, but
The plan was to play with Soaz, and then if we were to drop a game, we'd throw in Bwipo and shake up the draft. That was the plan. But then, yeah, Soaz got injured, so we just played with Bwipo. But I think it was okay. Like almost throughout the entire split, I feel like we've had similar performances with Bwipo.
Yeah.
So I didn't really feel like the injury actually had that much impact on how we were approaching this series. I felt like we still, just did our thing and we played really well, including him in the game. It wasn't like he was just on his own, like Soaz is many times. But the one thing I was worried about, for example, was the mental game that Bwipo maybe couldn't keep up, for example, in comparison to Soaz, because Soaz has been here before. He can do this. He can play semifinals on stage. But Bwipo surprised me. I've mentioned it a couple of times before. I think he's not really like a rookie in his mindset. I feel like he's very experienced already. He's very integrated in terms of communication and draft and everything. So for me, it feels like just as much as our top laner as Soaz does. So it didn't, catch us off guard. It was just a shame because I think having two top laners in a playoff game, best of 5, should be in our favor.
Well, we were actually talking about that beforehand, and I think after week 9, I asked my analysts on PGL, well, they have Bwipo as well, and they shot me down very quickly and said, no, there's no chance in hell that he would play, even if both of them were eligible. So it's kind of nice to hear that you guys were definitely thinking about that strategy, and I think it is a testament to Fnatic's development that you say, hey, we could just plug and play Bwipo in and still follow the exact same game plan that we would if it was with Soaz.
Yeah, but I think what impressed me the most was how reliable he was too. Like, he got camped in game 3.
That was one I mentioned before,
which was super unlucky for him. But it did seem like that. I'm going to assume his mental state did not deteriorate the more he got camped, right? Because it felt like that you guys were still getting stuff while he was being pressured on the top side. And to have that kind of mental state coming into a semi-final, like especially when the pressure's on, because if I was Bwipo and I was playing with Reckless, Caps, Broxah and Hillsang. No, but I also knew that, like, for the last year, they failed to make it into a final. And right now, this is one of the best looking Fnatics that we've seen in the last year. And this is their best opportunity to make it. Like, you must be feeling a lot of pressure, maybe even more so than the veterans that are already on that
I mean,
squad.
that could make sense. Yesterday, definitely, when a lot of us thought that Fnatic would be the upper hand or have the upper hand in the semifinal in PGL, you guys watched it, you just said yesterday as well. I was really surprised to hear from the guests, from Perks and from Jankos, that they didn't really see it as you guys were favored, and actually that it was very even, and Vitality was even the favorite going into that matchup. Why do you think people's opinions have changed so much from week 9 until the semifinal?
I think for pro players, scrims are heavily influencing how you feel about a team. So, for example, if you judge the early games, which is most important in scrims, then Vitality is actually the best team in Europe, probably. So whenever you scrim Vitality, you feel like it's very stressful and it's very hard to even get like past 15 minutes without the game being lost. But once you get on stage, it's a completely different game. Macro comes into play. You need to be able to play around Nashor, rotate between lanes to take towers. Like, it's just so much more that needs to be able to be done on stage than just play the early game. And I think that's why people maybe don't fear us as much in scrims, because we try to replicate as much as possible. Meanwhile, maybe a team like Vitality just zone in on the early game and they try to like make that perfect, but maybe that's just not the right approach for them, because as you could see both in the quarterfinals and now, the macro later were quite shaky.
So if we take a look at kind of Vitality's split in review, it ends now in the semifinals. Cavs, do you also agree that maybe because they are rookies and they are a fairly new team, those macro concepts and playing the mid game and late game is just not there yet for them?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think their early game is really strong. They definitely have a good idea of like how they want to play the early game, but they definitely just lack the experience. I don't know who exactly does like the shot calling, or like I guess usually everyone shot calls, but maybe they are just lagging a bit in it. They have some really creative calls, like the game 3, they almost ended the game with the Talia Camille thing, and they like to do that a lot, you know.
Yeah.
They like to do for these really creative plays, but I think they're just lagging a lot on the setup and just like playing the game by the books, I guess.
Thaddeus, if you'd have to TLDR kind of the split of Vitality, it's still all very, very, very impressive. They also still have that third place match and a possible Rift Rivals appearance, so it's not over yet. But this is kind of the end of the first chapter for them.
I feel like it's also really important to put things like relative to when you think about where Vitality are. They're top 4 in Europe right now. They overtook Misfits, they overtook Schalke. They were easily able to outdo, I say easily, they were able to outdo H2K and Roccat. And like you look at some of the names and veterans that they were going up against, and they've had to overcome a lot in order to reach this spot. And losing to Fnatic is not the worst thing in the world. I'm sure they will personally be disappointed, and I'm sure they will think to themselves that if they had played better, maybe they could have turned the series around. But to finish top 3 and still have an opportunity to finish 3rd, go to Rift Rivals, get a lot of points towards making the Worlds, like this is not a bad debut split for a team full of rookies. I think they can be pretty
Everyone
good.
has to start somewhere, so fantastic first split for them. We're going to have a slight intermezzo before we come back here because Dracos has some thoughts on today's semifinals and the finals ahead.
There's a lot of lessons, Shocks, teams could have learned from those games. A lot of lessons they should have learned, but today I want to focus on one. It's a simple concept, 2 words, 8 letters, ban Swain. The audience agrees, folks. It's time. Take him off the Rift. He's cruel, he's powerful, he's probably a little broken. Now this is a message not just for Vitality, but for Fnatic, G2, Splice, TSM could stand to learn from this one. Ban Swain. Ban Swain. You at home watching, wondering whether or not I'm memeing you, stop. Think about it. Ban Swain. Ban Swain.
There was a lot of talk online and in the cast about Swain, so I'm just going to ask you guys straight up, were you surprised that you got Swain this many times in the series? Caps, you were the guy who went off on it mainly.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm saying too much for scrims, I guess, but Swain is definitely looking really strong. I think it was like 12-0 before the series in EU and NALCS, something like this. I guess we lost 1 game with it, but even then, I think it was looking really strong. I think it's a really powerful pick, and I mean, I was definitely surprised that they let us get it every time.
Yeah, it was. We actually suspect that Yamato wanted to ban it in the final game, but we don't know. We'd have to ask him, but that they didn't do it in the end.
I mean, they were pretty tunneled on taking Reckless off of AD carries, and one thing I think that Deficio mentioned regularly was you're more than happy to play tier 2 AD carries, as it were, right? And even though you hate Ezreal, I'm sure you're more than happy to put up. Like, did you feel any pressure having, I think it was 6 AD carry bans in total?
Not really, but obviously I prefer to play tier 1 champions because if I'm a tier 1 champion, then I will carry the game. I understand the strategy, right? Like, it makes sense because we are kind of notorious for playing around me.
Sure.
But I think we've showed in the LCS as well that we can play around, for example, Caps. And we've showed that we can play around our top laner as well. Even when it was SOAS, I think we had a couple of games where it was pretty good around top lane. So I didn't really feel like pressure that shit now maybe, sorry for swearing. Now someone else is maybe not going to carry. I felt complete trust in my teammates that they would pull up the performance. So the only thing that I felt maybe, for myself at least, was that I underperformed in game 1. I was really nervous, like almost shaking nervous in game 1. So I was, yeah, a bit unhappy about that performance. But I think in game 2, 3, 4, I played pretty well. Most laning phases went pretty good. And I think the last one, we took their flash level 2 or something. So I think we're doing really well. I was just surprised to get Estro in the last game. Because I always thought that I needed to pick it first 3, otherwise they're going to ban it out. But then they left it open anyways in the last game. Because in the last game I was preparing to play Vayne.
Yeah, because
I was like, wait, why am I...
In my head, they were forcing you on Ezreal because they wanted to guarantee priority. But then they kept picking Cog and Tom, and then you guys kept getting priority.
I mean, I think Ezreal Braum is a really strong bot lane. Yeah. It's not like you're going to win that lane with tier 1 ADs either. It's just Ezreal is not a notorious like late game carry. And I think... Usually on your first base, you get priority with any other AD carry because Ezreal goes tier and the other guy goes pickaxe or longswords, and then that's when you start getting priority. But like level 1 to first base, I think Ezreal beats pretty much every lane actually. So I think more their idea was like we take away their late game so that the game becomes more stable. But then we had like, for example, the GP from Wipo or the Swain from Caps. So
Yeah, Hylissang was an
okay.
absolute madman in some moments as well.
Yeah.
There was, I think it was game 1 or 2, whenever his flash was up.
Game 2, yeah.
He just went in. I thought, whoa. And then when it started going south in game 3 a bit, I thought that might become a bit of a liability. Were you guys ever afraid that you have to actually take your foot off the pedal, that you were going too fast after that game 3, that you had to adjust your strategy, Caps?
I mean, my thoughts, at least going into, I mean, we're a bit like different thoughts, like going after the game 3, because obviously you see the Camille and she did a lot the game, so initially you think like, oh, the Camille is a huge problem and she got really far ahead and stuff like this. But I think in the game 3, I have to rewatch it, but at least I think what happened was that we were actually winning the game until the first Baron, which then kind of threw because they got the Baron and they got a few kills as well. And then on top of that, they got the second Baron, which was like a 50-50. And I think if we got either of those Baron, we would have had a chance to come back. But once they get both of those Barons, it's just impossible, especially with the Tamken, Talia, Camille, where it's like...
And they actually play pretty good split push. Like, I think they are one of the best split pushing teams. Like, once they actually get the Nash and they set up the 1-3-1, they are pretty damn
well,
good.
Jizuke also went absolutely off on that Talia in game 3. He knows how to play that. Finally, before we end on this match specifically, you had the POV stream. So 20,000 people for 4 hours only watched Reckless.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna come back home and then everyone's just gonna blame me for the most random stuff that I don't even think about. But I was a bit disappointed because when I heard about it, I was like really excited to play a Tristana game or a Saya game or a Jhin game, and then it was just permaban throughout the entire series, and I was stuck on Astral. I felt really disappointed because, first of all, as I mentioned before, I didn't play good in game 1, but even in the games I did play good, I felt like it wasn't like highlight reels, you know. Maybe the only thing was like I failed an E sometime, and then, you know.
Caps is giggling. He's like, they should have done a POV stream of me, man. I was going in on that.
Zoe game 1.
Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe it's a possibility. Before we head over to our next topic of conversation, I just want to kind of close off the top 4 that we have now. We'll see Fnatic versus G2 in the finals, and we have Vitality and Splice just falling outside of the race. When we look at the beginning of the split, how much is this top 4 and how it's playing out within our expectations, Ferius, for you?
So I was definitely not expecting Vitality and Splice to be top 4. Mine was Misfits, Schalke, and then Splice just outside of them. So I think the fact that they made a lot of, I guess for Splice, they showed a lot of great growth. And I think that is very credited to the coaching staff and the players that were able to identify a lot of their issues. Unfortunately, they just couldn't quite compete to the top teams of G2 and Fnatic. I think many analysts expected them to finish at the top of the table, but Vitality have just pretty much impressed throughout the entire season.
Yeah, anything to add to that?
Yeah, something similar. Like, I thought Misfits would be much better than they were. I was really surprised. I'm still surprised. I actually don't know what even happened there. It's just super weird.
If they'd won one more game during the regular season, they would have been in playoffs.
Yeah, but even then, do you feel like they would have been like a winning team? I'm not even sure. I felt like they were really disappointing throughout the entire split, actually. Other than the games they played us, which is that's crazy.
So you're happy that you didn't have to meet them in the semis.
I guess. But yeah, Vitality was a surprise. I thought they would be maybe 6th, making playoffs and then dropping in their quarterfinals, but they were actually really good throughout the entire split. Even the games they were losing at like the end of it, I thought they were still like a good team. They were just misjudging the patch, I think. I think they were just completely off with their picks, but for playoffs, they were on point. Both series, I think they played pretty well, and their drafts were pretty good, so...
I guess we're just lucky Gillies didn't go sack. And then
Otherwise, it was over. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the finals in just a bit. However, as we set our sights on Copenhagen, it is time for 1v1me, bro. So do you guys know the concept of 1v1me, bro? So I'm going to introduce the topic. There is a big discussion about who's going to be the MVP of the split. But I want to do a twist. I want Reckless, I want you in 30 seconds to explain to me why Caps should be the MVP of the split. And after that, I want Caps in 30 seconds to explain to us why Reckless should be MVP of the split. Do you think you guys can do that?
Sure, but isn't it already decided? Or this is just for, you know, the funds?
It is, but yeah, this is not going to decide who gets it. That would be crazy. So, Reckless, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
okay, wait. I'll bring you in. Why should Caps be the MVP of the split?
Okay, so I think already last year, Caps should have been in contention for MVP, but there were a lot of good mid laners in Europe, so he didn't really get that much attention other than like when he got into the split in the beginning of Spring Split as the baby faker. But I think this year he's still performing just as good as last year, maybe even better. But there's not as many good mid laners anymore, so he's just running over everyone and carrying a lot of games for us. So I think he definitely deserves to be an MVP candidate.
All right, you're one of the first people who actually does it right all the time.
I was getting stressed in the middle there. Okay, that works.
All righty, fantastic. Those were some pretty good arguments. Caps, do you think you can tell me and convince me that Reckless should be the MVP?
I think I can try.
3, 2, 1. Go.
So I can start one word, Tristana. And then I can move forward and say like the next 3 AD carries, because usually there's like 3 or 5 or 4 AD carry bans every game we play, just because every time Reckless gets Tristana or Saya or any of these hyper carries, he just gets like 5 kills in lane, and I'm sitting in mid lane and I just hear, oh, that. And we just keep ganking bot lane and we just keep killing them, and suddenly the inhib falls and I'm still laning mid lane and I'm not sure what happens.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
That was adorable. Lovely. I just remembered all the times when we saw in the first split that you guys played together whenever the game was over, and you would lean over to Reckless and like try to get his attention. And
I'm not
Reckless
used
was
to
not in
this.
the state of mind. We weren't doing well.
I
We
used
weren't
to
winning.
be the guy that was looking over to my mid laner, right? I was not used to this. Like when I had Peke, I was always, looking up to him, and when I had Fabian, he was always just chilling, and then I would have to grab him out of his seat. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of
So I have the same thing with Deficio. Every time we cast, he's always looking at me for acknowledgement.
You never cast
It's the
together.
thing.
You're
But I always get to
annoying.
play with really good mid laners, right? Like
Yeah.
I've been lucky in my career to always play with an insane mid laner.
Peke, Febiven, Caps,
Froggen.
Froggen.
Wow.
Yeah, Froggen as well.
That's pretty good, I would say. Good stuff. So now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's talk a bit about Denmark, and let's talk about the third place match and about the final. Let's pull up the bracket. Our final will be Fnatic versus G2, and all the configurations would have been nice, but Fnatic versus G2, it kind of feels like it was written in the stars. And the third place match will end up being Splyce versus Vitality. So as a warm-up, let's talk about Splyce versus Vitality. Very important match for Rift Rivals. Very important match for the points for Worlds qualification later on. What are you guys' thoughts, Caps, on the third place match? Who can take that?
I think Vitality is probably favored. I think Splyce was showing a really weak early game, and I think if Vitality play the same early game as they do right now, then they'll be able to get a huge enough lead that they will be able to close out the game. Just kind of like the G2 series, because I think they have even better early game than G2. The only question mark is if they don't manage to close out the games, like if a Nash gets stolen or stuff like this, then suddenly the Janna Caitlyn will get to late game, and then there's not a lot you can do.
For me, I do agree with Caps that Zeus specifically had a pretty bad week against G2. But I think this whole match will be very much determined by the junglers, because I think that a lot of the leads that both teams get are facilitated by jungle attention in the early game. Zeus typically goes more towards top side, but recently has been focusing a lot on bot as well. And Gilius, as we saw in today's series, likes to go mid a lot. So I feel like both junglers will be really important in how well they set up. And I feel like Zeus needs to figure out what other champions he can have an impact on that isn't Zac, because when that's taken off him, his presence definitely is less felt. So I would argue that Vitality are favored as well.
Martin.
Okay, so I think Vitality will smash them 3-0 because the draft disparity is too big. I think Splyce doesn't contest like a single power pick right now on this patch, so like Vitality will just get everything for free, and then Splyce will have a really weird comp, as you saw in the semifinals, pretty much every game, and then I think they have no chance, like really no chance.
Alrighty, so
So I think it's a quick 3-0.
damning
the warm-up game.
for the side of Splyce. Well, and that's, I think, also how we get out of that, because Vitality just played a competitive series versus Fnatic, and Splyce really just fell after that first game versus G2. G2 got better and better, and Splyce rather couldn't pick themselves back up. So I hope they can put some training in and give us 5 games for the third place match. And then on Sunday, the 8th of April, we have Fnatic versus G2. Can G2 win their 5th title in a row, and with that equate to the 5 titles that Fnatic already has?
No.
Or will Fnatic finally
Joey
lift the
can.
trophy again after 2 years?
What people don't
Reckless,
realize is that we have Joey and they don't, so...
you took him.
That was the difference
best
maker.
transfer. So how important is Joey actually? How over the split and in these situations
I mean,
like
I
today?
think today was a clear case on how important it is, because usually after we lose a game in a best of 5, at least from experience with this team, we have no way of coming back. But in this case, it looked like we just play, like the game didn't even exist to begin with, right? We just played game 4 as if...
What is it about him? What does he say?
I don't know, he just has like a calm presence in the room, and he makes sure we're well prepared by any sort of sheets that they might pull in terms of draft, in terms of mental. He just like brings the team together. I think it's just very easy for us as players to do our job when he's around.
Alrighty.
And I don't want to like flame previous coaching staff either. I think Joey is a very special
another
person,
level.
and yeah, it's hard to like replace him with anyone.
So given that we do have 2 Fnatic members, there might be a slight bias towards Fnatic winning the final. So I will do my best to represent G2.
G2, alrighty.
And I will say that I feel the biggest disparity is in top lane. I do think Bwipo did a fine job today. I think Wonder had a pretty immaculate performance yesterday. And I think he is a pretty terrifying top laner to go up against. I would argue that his champion pool is a little bit limited in that when he gets a carry, he's scary, but when he doesn't, his impact is definitely less felt. So that could be an angle with which Fnatic could look to try and punish him on. But the fact that Wonder is an individual that can carry games by himself and G2 can very happily play through him, I think that's just a very big avenue that G2 have an edge over Fnatic.
Caps, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's hard to say. I guess we haven't really seen the matchup before. I don't actually remember when we played G2. I don't really think Wonder did anything when we played G2 last time, but obviously that was with Soas. Maybe, I mean, I don't think he will be able to do anything, actually. I think the difference, even if Wonder is better than Weibo, I think the difference on the rest of the map is just too big.
What specifically?
And top lane is useless role as well, so.
Not at Soas, you're just like, oh, it's so useless.
I mean, obviously they have Jan and we're Reckless, but also just like we watched Splice versus G2, and I was seeing Niski get like 20, 30 CS up in lane against Perks. So I really don't understand how he can be this cocky.
So you
actually,
are really
cocky for someone who got super carried in the semifinals. But at the same time, I got carried too, so I'm trying to be quiet.
I love this, Caps. You were really tilted off Perks' words yesterday.
Yes,
you are so angry. So how is that going to translate onto the Rift? What are you going to do to Perks in Copenhagen?
I'm going to smash him so hard that he's going to think that it's an international tournament.
Holy moly!
Well, I'm on the right team, I guess.
Yeah, it does. So,
yeah, please.
That final in Copenhagen, today you guys obviously felt nervous going into a final. I feel like you're not going to feel nerves, anger, maybe, resentment, frustration. How do you think it will feel to have a Danish crowd behind you going up against? Would you say that Perks is your biggest rival in the EU LCS?
I mean, probably Zach, but I mean, other than Zach, I would definitely Perks. I think I always love playing with a big crowd. I think we won every time we played with a big crowd so far, except for maybe the NG series.
But that was one crowd versus no crowd. Like, where was our fans? You know?
No one was cheering for us. But
like, I love the Chinese crowd, but that series there was nothing. You know, we were killing people, and it was just completely silent. It was
even in Turkey when I played the final there, I think we 3-0'd as well. So I'm definitely excited for it, and I hope that I can show this. That this team can show the same performance we have done previously when we have big crowds. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'll be nervous. I think it's been a semi-finals thing.
But you just said you were nervous for today, so not for the final.
I think finals will be much more excitement, you know, to just go up there and show what we got. But for semis, it's just this thing that has happened in the past, and we're really scared of losing in another semi-final.
The demon is dead.
And having to wait for another half year to get the chance. So I think now it's much easier to play a semi-finals in the future, and also finals should be, in my eyes, at least in our favor. But at the same time, G2 has improved a lot. Like when we scrimmed them, I think they improved a lot. And I said this on Euphoria as well, which they showed yesterday. I think their bot lane was much better yesterday than in like the entire split. So I don't think it's free win. But I think if we can beat Vitality, then we can beat G2.
Well, we'll see. Just as a reminder that Euphoria, you guys made a wager that you would have to be in a sausage suit if you didn't make it to the final. Now we get to see the Fisho and Dracos in a sausage suit.
Yeah, but actually I wanted to, I mean, I maybe shouldn't do it on air, but I wanted to ask Perks if he wants to do it anyways. I think it would be cool as like on a Saturday, we're not doing anything usually anyways. Like we're just maybe warming up for the teams that are playing third.
Is that what they say? Could you wear a Danish flag costume, or is that like blasphemy?
I mean, I don't care. Like, I thought it would be fun if like me and Perks go in our costumes and then we make like some sort of trailer for the finals. Because on Saturday we're just chilling anyway, so it could be cool to do something.
We'll hold you to it, Reckless. Now that you've said it,
if you're not down, then
fantastic.
We'll just have to wait for
Everyone
the
just wants to dress up. We don't know what that's about. No, but fantastic fighting words. I can't wait actually for that final. It's going to be incredibly hype. And I think for you also, Reckless, as a final note, you talked a lot about how last year you did the MVP interview and just interviews in general, and it just didn't feel like it was the moment, right? And it would suck to be in that third place match again. So for you, it must be...
I don't even know if I would have shown up actually this year. Third, I would have just ran home, I think. Yeah. But yeah, obviously, I mean, like when I was there last year, I felt like this was like an amazing venue to play League of Legends in. And when you have the chance to play a finals and you're just over and over there playing the third place game, the warm-up game that no one really cares about.
Don't say that. This is a very important match.
Yeah, for Rift Rivals. But in the summer split, it was kind of like we were playing for nothing.
Oh, yeah,
right?
that's very true. Yeah, okay.
It just felt sad, like really just super sad. So now that we're in the finals and probably me or Caps are getting the MVP award, I feel like this is a moment we'll probably remember for a very long time. So let's make it count.
Oh, it's what dreams are made of. Well, that's next week. Let's dial in for 1 second more on this week's semifinals because they've been full of action, so we got to check out the highlight reel. Here are your LCS big plays brought to you by Acer Predator. First up, we mentioned him already in Game 2 yesterday. G2's Yarnan had some fancy footwork and put the flourish in Deadly Flourish.
Cersei is around. Wonder, very, very low. The root comes out, but Yarnan's here now, and Niski realizes he's not in the best spot. He gets one. Looking for the round warp out, gets the root. Yarnan, so low. The close. Ace. Yarnan, that's it away. Deadly Flourish is enough. Wow. Det starkt. Kommer på Mathias. Okay, fight Johnny, fight Johnny. Johnny is here. I will go. Johnny is here, by the way.
This is gonna still be that though.
Yeah. I just flash now.
Maybe it's not.
Okay, he flashed, okay? Wait. He flashed.
I think we cannot do it just by... yeah, I should back. I'm low. Yes, I'm really low.
Go on,
maybe we can do it.
No,
Wait, no, this was the same.
Our panel does not agree that that was a good play. Is that what you said?
That was a bad play from Niski. So that should have been like...
because
there's always a bad side to every good play.
But also, I thought we were going to grab the quadra kill from the Baron.
I think there's another one.
Is there another one?
Yeah. Thank you for setting it up.
This is when we were supposed to say so good.
Seamless transition into Yarnan didn't stop there. He closed that game 3 with a monster quadra kill, and at Misek GG tweeted, "Yarnan, you monster, the beast has just awakened."
Yeah, it's this one.
Perk's dead, as usual.
Live
Quite unfair. One guy has that.
The Baron goes, but Cohen's dead. It's a triple. The Jin. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looking for the quadra kill here as well, but can't quite close it out on Odo. They want to get to him. It's a curtain call for Splice, and it's curtains for this game.
Gino, we have to run into them now.
I hook.
No sponsor.
They turn on me. Look. Hide now.
I don't know.
Rice is dead. Jin is smurfing. No. Right. Jin is smurfing. Oh, Jin is really smurfing. I was smurfing by the way. Go ahead. This guy. Holy shit, this is the classic, like me getting caught and winning the game again.
Kill this guy.
Yeah. Holy shit, but we are so good. Like,
go mid then.
Did you hear Perk said this is classic me getting caught and then we win the game. So he's one step ahead of you, Cap.
We'll see in finals if that works.
We'll see. Oh, there's not holding any punches. I love it. Final big play in today's series. Vitality threw a party in the bottom lane with Fnatic. They were ready for them. At Bobby's Life gave credit where credit was due, writing, "That was insanely brilliant" by Caps.
It's my mid laner smirking.
Our shot is going all in. He is indeed. Powder kicks dodged away from Telio. Hextech ultimatum's been used. Broxa pulls Jizuki off the wall. And now Cabo is looking for a little bit more damage and the kill. Caps has arrived. He finishes the teleport. Gets caught by the seismic shot. Caps jumps forward and with the lightning zaps down Cabo. Buifo gets another in reply. And nobody from Fnatic die. It's a double kill death's hand for Caps. I can TP. I'm gonna ult. Talion's ulting.
I stopped Talia.
I'll TP. Kill.
Talia flash.
Sconner's here.
Talia no flash.
Sconner's moving from his slowly. I'll push mid as well.
Talia's here, no flash.
We're gonna flash on this one.
Flash Talia.
I'm on her. She dead. Sconner in river. Kana's coming from Taiwan. Killing him. Kana from Taiwan. Kana here.
He won't go.
Oh, he's here.
Holy shit.
He's here.
Good shit.
Calm down. What's the call?
Fantastic.
Calm down.
Calm down, you guys. It was only game 2, so good stuff.
Yeah, we were quite hyphy today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it showed in-game as well. There was just action all over. And more action next week because we'll have the big stage for more big plays as we head to Copenhagen for the 2018 Spring Finals. Our coverage begins Saturday at 5 p.m. Central European Summertime for the third place match. And then on Sunday, we've got a special pre-game lobby starting at 4:30 p.m. as we count down to the finals opening ceremony at 5. That is next week. But for tonight over in the North American LCS, their first semifinal is about to get underway with Echo Fox versus Team Liquid kicking off after the NALCS countdown. Quick prediction, Team Liquid
Let's
or
go,
Echo Fox?
Pretty sure it'll be a
Boy.
3-1 to Liquid.
3-1 Liquid?
Trio Echo Fox, Hooney's gonna smash them 3.
The Hooney
No
love.
chance.
Capsy 3-3?
Yeah, I'll go 3-3.
3-3 classic prediction from Rasmus Winter. Fantastic time. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. We'll see you in the finals versus G2 in Copenhagen. That'll be all from us here in Berlin. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It's time for us to pack up and head over to Denmark. We'll see you there. Good night.
What do you need us to do, Jizuke?
I need vision.
I'm blind.
He's already taken down many Q-backs and he's on a rampage. Now Pupo zoning away through with the help of Captain Reckless and Broxa clean up the back end. So far it's a 1 for 2. That's a 1 for 3. The rookie class of 2018. Fnatic strike first in the semi-final. Hextech ultimatum has been used. Broxa pulls Jizuki off the wall. Now Cabo is looking for a little bit more damage and the kill. Caps has arrived. He finishes the teleport. Gets caught by the seismic shot. Caps jumps forward and with the lightning zaps down Cabo. There wasn't enough damage. Fnatic turned this around. Destroy the rookies.
I don't think we can do it. Let's go.
And Fnatic are 1 win away from finals. Tequila's gonna let the flash over the cliff. He's in. Who's gonna win the slide fight? The Debs are not there yet. Rupa's gonna go down. Gilius gets the kill. The Baron Elias gets on. Gilius wins the Baron spike fight as well as the ensuing fight.
Holy shit.
We have a series on our hands as Vitality strike back. So looking into the fight. Here comes Gilius. Ragnarok going down. Caps in the money. The Sage is surviving. Flashes away to safety. Bursts out. Gilius for the kill. Fnatic advance to the finals.